Hey, this is a big week, not just the 4th of July, as Tariq mentioned, but Kevin, we get to see three teams in all of three sports is starting up this week. We're getting basketball, hockey, and baseball on a trial run, the preseason stuff to see how all of this works after all of this time. You expecting anything in particular?
A disaster.
Really?
Really, I don't know how, there's so many cases right now, and there's so many players that have tested positive, especially in the NHL. They're like 15 or whatever it is this week. What do they do when a player tests positive once they've started play? Now, if it's the general public, we all have to quarantine, and everyone you were in contact with through contact tracing needs to quarantine as well. That would shut down an entire team and the team they played against. I don't get it. I don't know how they think they're going to do this.
It is as an element of sort of flying by the seat of their pants to this, isn't there, Tariq?
There is, and I think it's the attempt to do it. I think it's the fact that everybody wants to attempt to try to do something. I tried, and this is what happened. This is what happened. Like Kevin said, well, a number of players got COVID, or a number of cities had to shut down. That's what really concerns me now. How many cities the numbers are going up that are NHL cities, Major League Baseball cities, NBA cities. The NBA is doing their entire bubble in a city where the numbers are going up. So that concerns me a lot. I mentioned it last week, and it still concerns me. But I think it's just to try to do something before you get to August. And once you get to August, the NFL will be moving. We'll know exactly whether or not we'll have football. College, we'll know if we're going to play any sports there. I think this is play it out. We have 30 days, maybe 60 games for baseball, and then see where we go from here. I think it's play the hand we're dealt because we want to use every opportunity possible to try to play sports.
And I have no problem with baseball. I mean, I get baseball. This is their season. They've lost part of it. They're trying. I don't get why the NBA and the NHL think they're gonna salvage a season. Does this Stanley Cup mean something? Is it the same Stanley Cup?
You tell me. That's your Baylor. You tell me if whoever wins the Stanley Cup.
I don't think it is. And again, I don't know. Players are testing positive. Yes, there are injuries during an NHL season as well, and NBA season, and sometimes the best players are out because of injury. But teams will lose stars because of COVID, and then what happens? I mean, again, I know it's a weird attempt to salvage TV money when I don't know why they just don't try to start next year and make next year as good as it can possibly be, rather than jam this into whatever window they're trying to make it work in. And plus, the NHL has players coming back from Europe. They're flying they're not necessarily flying into their own city right now either. So, they're flying into hot spots. They're going through airports. They've been on a plane for how many hours to get here? I don't see how it works. I don't mean to be a pessimist, but usually I'm a realist. I think this is the realist saying it's not going to work.
There's so many variables, though. I kind of think, to Tariq's first point, I think it's better to try and potentially fail than not to try at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look how bad it would have looked if this pandemic wasn't where it is right now and they didn't try anything. It would have been the I told you so's, and then the NFL would have been in a great position to start their season. But even they have taken away a couple preseason games, and we're not even sure when that might start as well, even though there's a lot to talk about with transactions within this past week.
The NFL does have one advantage.
Thing that's come out of this, losing 2 NFL preseason games. That could be the greatest accomplishment that this pandemic has caused in sports.
But the NFL is sitting in a pretty good position because they're going to get a chance to see how these other sports deal with it, to see what happens. And the fact is, it changes so day to day that by the time these things roll around, you never know. They might be in a much better spot than they are now and not worse. I think they've got to take a shot.
Yeah, well, they're going to, so here we go.
Tariq, take the basketball angle for me here and tell me, assuming they get onto the field, they get onto the court, how's it going to affect play? What do you expect to see in terms of that? And Kevin, I'll ask you the same afterwards about hockey. What do you think of basketball playing again?
I think the players are going to play as hard as they can. It's for a championship. Yes, it'll have some sort of asterisk with coronavirus attached to it. But I think they'll play for as long as they can, if they can play. Based on, what's been happening, if the numbers skyrocket and the number of players start getting affected by it, or staff members or people around the sport, they might shut it down. But, I'm more of an optimist than a pessimist. I'm going into it, like Kevin said, pessimistically, but hopefully we'll get to play.
And hockey, Kevin?
I do wonder what feel it will have for players. It'll have a tournament feel. I'll say that because they're using the 2 hub cities. It'll have that Canada Cup Olympic type feel, and maybe guys really get into it, and maybe play is great. But I just think they've been off so long that injuries will be inevitable, and the product eventually, whoever's left standing at the end will be a shell of what their team really was, could have been, whatever.